The Revolve tool can be very useful in creating our designs that have shapes that are revolved or symmetrical about some axis. So taking a look at this lamp design as an example, you can see that this blue base is really a fairly complex shape that I wouldn't necessarily be able to create just using extrudes, or maybe it would be quite difficult to create using extrudes. Similarly, the lampshade, again, might be possible to create just using extrudes and cuts, but again, it seems to be revolved all about some central axis. So how these two components were created, I have this sketched profile, which was used to create the base of my lamp. And how this was created was just this specific profile was revolved about some axis of revolution. In this case, it would be my center axis going straight up about that z-axis or upward axis as an example. Similarly, to create my lamp shade, this closed profile was just revolved about the same axis of revolution. So let's take a look at how we can create this. So to generate any revolved component, I'm going to require at least two things. I'm going to require a closed sketch, such as this, as well as a axis or a line to revolve about. So in this case, let's see what line or axis I'd like to revolve about. I'm just going to jump into a front view. And what I'd like to revolve about in this case is actually this edge or line right here. And you can use any line or axis to use as your axis of revolution. I could actually use an existing line. I could use this line itself. But just for illustration purposes, I'm going to draw in an additional line, maybe right about here. And I want that line to be going just straight up in this case, about that z-axis. So this larger line here, going straight up about my up or z-axis here, is what I'll be using as my axis of revolution. And I'm going to revolve both the base about that line, as well as the lampshade about that line as well. So let's take a look at how this can be done. Let's jump back into a more 3D view. Again, note I still have that axis of revolution to revolve about. And to find my Revolve tool, I just go into Tools. And here we have a whole number of tools that we'll be learning throughout a number of lessons. But we'll start here with the Revolve tool. So within the Revolve tool, it's going to ask me to select two different things. Again, first it's asking me to select faces or any closed sketches that I'd like to revolve. So I'm going to start with the base of my lamp and select this closed sketch. And then notice as soon as I select a face or a closed sketch, I now have an option to jump to Next. Once I've tapped Next, it's now going to ask me to select a line or an edge to use as my axis of revolution, or what I'd like to revolve about. So in this case, it's going to be that axis of revolution that I've just drawn out. Notice as soon as I tap on that axis of revolution, you can see my full revolve coming in. Essentially, it's just revolved that sketched profile about this axis. Notice in the top left corner, I can change the axis I'd like to revolve. So by default, it's revolving all the way around 360 degrees, but maybe I want to change that to just 25 degrees. And we can see that's just revolved kind of a portion of my lamp base. And as I increase this value, you can see the profile is just revolved further and further around. In this case, of course, I do want to go all the way around and close out my revolve, so I would like to revolve it 360 degrees. Once I'm happy with this, of course, I can just tap the Done check to finish off my lamp base. Next, I can just repeat these exact same steps to revolve my lamp shade. So I'll jump into Tools and Revolve. First, I want to select my face or my closed sketch, so in this case, this closed sketch, and then tap Next. And now which line or axis I'd like to use to revolve about. Again, the same line or axis that I drew earlier, and we can see my full revolve coming in once again. Same as before, I can change the angle if I'd like to see portion of my revolve. But in this case, again, I do want to revolve all the way around 360 degrees to close out my full revolve. Once happy with this, tap the Done check. And now we can see my completed lamp base and lamp shade, both created by revolving a sketched profile about some axis of revolution. And revolves are probably the two most commonly used 3D design tools. That being said, we do have a whole number of additional 3D design tools that we're going to be learning in some later lessons.